OK, gas and electricity bills to skyrocket though. That's roughly another $1,000 or so a year that folks are going to have to find. What's the short-term plan to ease that pain?
Well, we'll look at regulatory reform, as the Treasurer flagged yesterday. We know that one of the things we inherited was the 20% increase that was baked in, that the government actually introduced a regulation earlier this year to avoid telling the Australian people before the election. That was a decision that had been made. So that price increase began in June. It was deferred by the government, that announcement by the former government, because they hid from the Australian people what was going on. We've been upfront about this. We had 4 gigawatts of power basically leave the system under the former government, only 1 gigawatt of new investment come in. That's had an issue on supply, but we are getting it moving again. And what we know is that the cheapest form of new energy is clean energy. Last week alone, we had the biggest new investment in renewables, the biggest announcement since the Chifley government announced the Snowy Hydro scheme.
Well, what will that regulatory reform entail?
Well, we will continue to engage with the ACCC. We've already saw the ACCC make strong recommendations that led to the heads of agreement with gas suppliers earlier just in the last month. That agreement was signed off. That's about making sure that Australians get access and supply for the non-contracted gas that was in the system. What we need to do, of course, is to increase supply further. We'll continue to engage with the ACCC, as well as we're taking advice from our respective departments. We would, as the Treasurer said yesterday, be prepared to look at measures that are beyond what governments have normally considered because of the extraordinary circumstances which we're seeing, which is a result of 2 things. One, the failure of the former government over a decade, the lost decade of investment that has seen that reduction in supply, but also what's occurred with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which has seen a global issue, a spike in global prices for energy that's fueling international inflation. That is something that is having an impact here as well. If we'd have had a decade of renewables investment, we would be less reliant upon those global prices that are feeding into inflation here as well as around the world.
Do you now concede Australians won't see a $275 saving to their annual energy bill as promised this term?
No, I stand by the Reputex modelling which was
but will people still see those savings?
Based upon that. Well, we stand by the modelling, Peter, because the modelling
is the modelling now outdated?
If you have renewables, if you have renewables investment compared with the business as usual approach of just sitting back and watching nothing happen, which is what happened under the former government, then you will have cheaper prices. We know that for the same reason why your listeners have put a solar panels on their roof, because once that capital investment is repaid, they get cheaper power. That is the same principle that applies throughout our national economy. It's one where the former government simply failed to get that investment. That's why the Business Council and Australian Industry Group and the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Clean Energy Council, the National Farmers Federation, all have backed our plan, our Powering Australia plan that we have. We had 22 energy policies announced by the former government, none of them implemented. I'll tell you what, Pete, you need an energy policy for this country. We now have one.
OK, just a few quick ones here before you go, Prime Minister. Rishi Sunak, he's the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Thoughts on this and when you'll get to speak to him?
I congratulate Mr Sunak on his election as Prime Minister. We have a phone call scheduled for later today, and it will be my third engagement with the British Prime Minister in my 5 months as the Prime Minister of Australia. It's a reminder of how important stable government is here, and that is what we are providing.